My uncle's funeral was never supposed to happen that week. He wasn't even supposed to be dead. But on a gray Wednesday morning, I found myself standing under a dripping black umbrella, watching a priest mispronounce his name as they lowered the coffin into the earth. "May God receive the soul of Edward Langston," the priest said, except his name wasn't Edward. It was Eldon. Eldon Langston. I looked over at my cousin May, who was standing rigidly beside me. Her mascara was running, but her eyes were dry. She hadn't cried. None of us had. Because the body in that coffin didn't look like him. The face was waxy and stretched. Too pale. Too still. And most importantly, it was the wrong man. We all knew it. But nobody said a word. The official story was that my Uncle Eldon had gone missing 3 weeks earlier during a solo fishing trip in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. After 5 days of silence and no sign of him, the Rangers found a body floating downstream in a remote river bend, barely recognizable. Clothes matched. ID matched. His old wedding band was still on the left hand. They identified him by his dental records. The police shrugged. Case closed. Only, there were things that didn't add up. For starters, Eldon hated the river. He fished in still lakes, calm waters. Never rivers. He always said the current made him feel haunted. And then there was the body itself. Swollen. So bloated that May refused to identify it. The funeral home had done their best to make the corpse presentable. But the shape of the jaw was wrong. The ears too small. The hairline unfamiliar. My uncle had salt and pepper curls. This man's hair was pitch black, combed flat and slick like a used car salesman's. But again, no one said a word. Except my grandmother. The day before the funeral, she pulled me aside with shaky hands and stared at me with those watery, glass blue eyes. "That's not my son," she whispered. "I know," I said quietly. She looked around to make sure no one was listening. "Then why are they putting him in the ground?" I didn't know how to answer her. We went ahead with the service. What else could we do? The county issued a death certificate. The insurance money was already being processed, and the body had a toe tag with my uncle's name on it. Maybe, we told ourselves, it was just a trick of death. A bloated river corpse would look strange. People change in death, right? Right. We buried him in the family cemetery behind the old farmhouse where my uncle grew up. It had been abandoned for decades, but the land was still legally his. A narrow trail led through rotted apple trees and broken fencing until it opened into a mossy clearing where generations of Langstons lay in crooked rows. We lowered the coffin. We threw dirt. We left flowers. That night, I dreamed of my uncle standing outside my bedroom window, soaking wet, his face pressed against the glass. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He just stared. And behind him, in the darkness, someone else stood. Someone who looked just like him, but with a smile carved too wide. The night after the funeral, I stayed at the farmhouse. May didn't want to, but she was the executor of the estate now, and there were papers to sign, boxes to go through, and an insurance rep coming the next morning. The place hadn't been lived in for almost 10 years, and it smelled like wetwood in closed spaces. We turned on space heaters and stayed mostly in the old living room, where the fireplace still worked. It was almost midnight when we heard the first knock. Not on the door. From beneath the floorboards. May froze. I muted the TV. The knock came again, soft, slow, deliberate. It sounded like someone was tapping wood with a single knuckle. 3 taps. A pause. Then 3 more. Knock. 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 "I don't like that," she whispered. "It's an old house," I said. "Probably. Pipes." But we both knew there were no working pipes. No running water. The main line had been shut off years ago. I grabbed the flashlight and walked toward the basement door. It groaned when I opened it, so loud it seemed to echo down into the concrete hollow below. The stairs looked rotted, and the bottom was cloaked in pitch black. "I wouldn't," May called. "I'll just take a look." I stepped down slowly. The wooden steps creaked, sagged. The light from my phone barely reached the floor, but enough to see the edges of old tool shelves, a rusted water heater, and mildew-stained walls. Then I saw it. There was a door in the far corner of the basement. I'd been in this house as a kid, countless times. There was never a door there. It was plain, made of thick wood, with a small brass handle. And it was open just a crack, wide enough that I could see darkness beyond it, deeper than even the basement should allow. I stepped closer. That's when I heard it. From inside the crack, breathing. Slow. Wet. Unnatural. Not like lungs. Like something pretending to breathe. I backed away slowly and climbed the stairs 2 at a time. When I slammed the basement door shut, May was already holding her car keys. "Let's sleep in the truck," she said. We did. By morning, the knocking had stopped, and the door in the basement was gone. We left around noon and stayed the next 2 nights at a cheap motel on the edge of town. On the 3rd day, May had to meet the lawyer, so I went back to the farmhouse alone to pick up a few of her boxes. I swore I'd be in and out in under 30 minutes. The house was cold again. Quiet. The kind of quiet that feels like it's listening. I went upstairs to the master bedroom and began folding some old clothes and documents into a duffel bag. Then I heard it. Whistling. Coming from outside. Not a song. Just a single sustained note. High-pitched, like someone testing a kettle. I peeked through the window. The yard was empty. The whistling continued. It was moving. Around the house. Clockwise. It circled the house twice before stopping at the back door. I stood frozen at the top of the stairs, gripping the banister so tightly my knuckles ached. The handle turned once. Stopped. Then slowly, too slowly, it turned back. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. Not until it stopped. Then I heard footsteps retreating into the overgrown field. When May got back that evening, I told her everything. She didn't say much. But when we finally went to bed, she pushed the dresser in front of the bedroom door. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was afraid, but because I heard someone whispering my name through the wall behind the bed. May wanted to leave. Not just the farmhouse, but the entire state. She was packing things into boxes without saying much, but I could tell something had broken inside her. I tried to be rational. Suggested maybe we get a priest, or a local paranormal investigator, or anyone who might help us make sense of what was happening. She just shook her head and said, "It's not the house." "What do you mean?" "It followed us." That night, we stayed at my apartment across town. May barely spoke, just collapsed on the couch and fell into a twitchy, half-conscious sleep. Around 2 a.m., I got up for water and saw something in the mirror. Not in the bathroom mirror. In the hallway one, the tall antique one my mom gave me when I moved in. There was a man standing behind me. I spun around. No one. But in the mirror, he was still there. His head was tilted slightly to the side. His skin was wet and blue, like it had been underwater too long. And his eyes clouded, white, dead. I stared at him. He stared back. Then he smiled. In the moment I blinked, he was gone. The next morning, the mirror was cracked down the middle. May didn't react. She just asked, "What did he look like?" When I described the man in the reflection, she nodded. "Same one who stood outside the car. I saw him that night, through the rearview mirror. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at you." Something strange started happening after that. My reflection began lagging. At first, it was subtle. A blink that didn't match. A smile that lasted a second too long. But by the end of the week, it was mimicking me with a delay. I'd raise my hand, and it would follow 1, 2 seconds later. As if it was watching, learning, rehearsing. I covered the mirrors. All of them. But that didn't stop it. On the 6th day after the funeral, May disappeared. Her car was found still running in the parking lot of a gas station 20 minutes away. Her phone was left on the passenger seat, with the camera open, still recording. The last footage on her phone was a selfie video. It was dark, blurry, but her face was clearly visible. She was whispering frantically, barely able to hold the camera straight. "If you're watching this, something's wrong with the body," she said. "It's not just about him being dead. It's about who died. Or what got buried. I think they buried the wrong person. Or the wrong version. And now, something's trying to get back." The video ended with a low growl, right before the screen cut to black. I showed the video to the police. They said it was inconclusive. No signs of struggle. No evidence of a crime. Just another adult who'd gone missing of their own accord. They didn't search the fields. They didn't ask about the house. They didn't want to know. But I did. I went back to the farmhouse one last time. The doors were still locked. Nothing inside had been touched. Except for one thing. The old photograph on the mantel, the one of my uncle and his brother as kids, was gone. In its place was a new one. Same pose. Same outfits. Same background. Only now, there were 3 boys in the picture. And the one in the middle had no face. I stayed away for 3 days. Tried to live like everything was fine. I even went back to work. But at night, the mirror glitches returned. Except now, there were 2 reflections. One of me, and one of May. And hers never moved. The day I returned to the farmhouse, I brought a shovel. I know how that sounds. But the photograph had changed again. Now all 3 boys had faces. All identical. All smiling. And every time I blinked, they seemed to smile wider. I took that photo with me and buried it under a stone outside. When I came back inside, it was on the mantel again. So I went down to the basement. I hadn't returned there since the night of the knocking. But this time, I came prepared with a flashlight, a crowbar, and 3 prayers I barely remembered from childhood. The door was back. Same as before, plain, thickwood. Only now, it was wide open. The air coming through it was freezing. I stepped inside and descended a short flight of earthen steps. They weren't there before. The tunnel beyond was made of old bricks and root-wrapped dirt. It led into what looked like a forgotten root cellar. But what was inside wasn't food. It was a mirror, floor to ceiling. A seamless pane of dark, humming glass, fixed into the back wall like a mouth waiting to open. And in the mirror was the body. My uncle, standing upright. His face bloated, his shirt still damp from the river. Only his eyes moved, staring straight at me. He didn't speak. But something else in the mirror did. It didn't have a face. Just a black void where a head should be. And when it opened its mouth, I felt a pressure in my chest like my heart was being squeezed. It whispered, "This is not your world." I stumbled backward, dropped the flashlight. It flickered, casting sharp shadows over the cellar walls. I turned to run, but the stairs behind me were gone. Only a blank wall remained. I slammed my fists against it, screamed, clawed at the dirt, but nothing gave. Behind me, the whispering got louder. "We were here first. You buried the wrong one." And then the air snapped. I don't remember how I got out. I woke up in the kitchen with dirt under my nails and blood in my mouth. It was night again. The power was out, and there was someone sitting on the front porch. I could hear the wood creaking with each slow sway of the rocking chair. When I opened the front door, it was empty, except for 3 things on the floor. A single photograph, a ring, and a piece of paper that simply read, "Trade accepted." The next morning, I got a call from the county. They were doing a routine recheck on the cemetery lot, something about misfiled paperwork from the burial. They needed a signature. When I got there, the groundskeeper was waiting near my uncle's grave. He looked pale, visibly shaken. "We had a problem," he said. "The casket collapsed." I didn't understand. Collapsed how? Like it was never full. Like there was nothing inside. They reopened the grave. The coffin was there, sealed tight. But when they cracked it open, it was empty. No body, no clothes, no wedding ring. Just a thin layer of water pooled at the bottom and a faint smear of something black across the inner lid, like mold or rot or ink. The groundskeeper looked at me and whispered, "You sure you buried the right one?" I didn't answer, because I knew the truth. We hadn't buried anyone. I didn't tell the groundskeeper what I saw in the cellar. Didn't tell him about the mirror, or the voice, or the empty coffin. He wouldn't have believed me. But I believed it now, all of it. Whatever had come back from that river wasn't my uncle. And it hadn't come back alone. I started digging through county records, old blueprints, and the Langston family history. The farmhouse had been built in 1883. But before that, the land had a different name. A much older one. Illock Hollow. The word meant nothing to me until I found a fragment of a journal in the local archives. It belonged to a settler named Barrett Langston, one of my distant ancestors. The entry was dated March 1874. The well was not meant to be opened. The watchers warned us, but we were proud and deaf. Now we see the third reflection. It watches when we sleep. It copies when we move. We buried it deep, but the ground remembers. I read it over and over. The third reflection. Not us. Not our reflection. But something pretending to be both. That night, I dreamed of 3 boys again. They stood in a field of bone-white grass under a bleeding sky. The tallest one held a black key in his mouth. The middle one held nothing. The smallest one whispered something I couldn't hear. When I woke up, my bedroom door was open. I hadn't left it that way. And on the floor was that same photograph from the farmhouse. 3 boys. 3 smiles. And this time, my face had replaced one of theirs. The mirror in my apartment began acting up again. But this time, it didn't just reflect. It showed places I hadn't been. I saw the inside of the funeral home. The preparation room. I saw my uncle's body on the table. I saw it sit up, eyes open, mouth smiling. I screamed, threw the mirror down, but it didn't break. Just kept showing the same image, over and over, like it was stuck in a loop. That night, the lights in my building went out for 6 minutes. When they returned, every mirror in my unit had turned to face my bed. I don't own that many mirrors. I went back one last time. To the cellar. To the mirror. It was waiting for me, humming quietly like a machine in sleep mode. But this time, there was no reflection, only darkness. And inside it, I could see them. 3 boys, now grown, standing shoulder to shoulder. The middle one stepped forward. He looked just like my uncle, and just like me, and just like someone else I couldn't place, until he smiled. He had May's smile. He raised one finger, pressed it to the inside of the glass. And then I heard the voice again. A body is just a door. Thank you for leaving it open. I ran. This time, the stairs were there. I climbed, didn't look back. When I slammed the cellar door shut, the air pressure in the house changed, like something enormous had inhaled, and the house had sighed in return. I nailed the basement shut, burned the photograph, smashed every mirror. But I know it's not enough. A month has passed. No one has found May. The police gave up. Her case file is gathering dust somewhere. But I still see her sometimes. In store windows. In car mirrors. In puddles on rainy sidewalks. And every time I do, her mouth is moving. But the sound comes from behind me. Last night, I turned on my phone camera by accident. I was brushing my teeth. And there was someone else's hand on my shoulder. I live alone. And now, so does it.